This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Maximus. On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, a transformation for mission delivery and resilience at the Defense Logistics Agency.
This is going to make it easier for them. It's going to make it more responsive for them, and it's going to keep them, I think, as part of the defense industrial base, which will add to our resiliency, which we really need right now.
Ken Watson of DLA on FedGov Today in just a moment. Uniting program strategy, advanced technology, process, and execution for a more efficient government. That's Maximus. Every program, every service, every time. That's innovation forward. Learn more at maximus.com/federal. The technical data management transformation is underway at the Defense Logistics Agency. DLA says it will, quote, provide a faster, more efficient approach to item management at the agency. Kenneth Watson's acting commander of DLA's Land and Maritime. Ken, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. What is the work that you're doing here aiming to transform exactly? Welcome.
Hey, Francis, thanks so much. And, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. The tech data management piece is so key to our operation here in the supply chain business. We deal just on a scale of about 355,000 contract actions a year here on the multiple Class 9 parts that we buy for all the weapon systems that are out there managed by the services. We've done a great job of over the years of automating and applying technology to our enterprise business systems. But the one piece that's kind of been left out has been that key piece of the tech data piece where we've got to integrate with the services on one hand. DLA plays a bit of a middleman in this game, getting that most up-to-date technical specification for whatever that part is, and then translating that, building that package so it goes out on solicitation to our industry partners out there. So they're bidding on the latest specifications for whatever that item is, and they know what it is. That process, unfortunately, has kind of, over the years, not been part of the other automations that we've seen. What we're going to do with TDMT, that is transformation, is digitizing that data flow, being that integration point via a software package that's going to help us to connect a lot of diverse technical formats out there amongst the tech data how that's stored in each one of the services product lifecycle management systems, and then pull that in, be more of a push system rather than us having to go out and ask for it each and every time. And then we can take that most current information and then funnel that in a digital means, not manual means, to our industry partners who are bidding as we go in and we build these solicitations out there. It's going to replace a number of different systems that are archaic, what we call our C folders, where our tech data packages are currently staged for vendor access. And it's really, I think, going to be a means by which we pull together into one place and offer a much more streamlined digital package for our industry partners to be able to understand what it is they're actually bidding on to make. That's kind of it in a nutshell. It's a process we've needed to add automation to for a long time. It's a hard nut to crack because you're dealing with many different services, different engineering support activities out there in each one of the program offices. But I think we've got a solution in place to start heading down this path over.
Are the services helping by transforming the way that they're sending you data, or is this all on DLA to be able to assimilate all this data and format it in such a way that you can compile it and curate it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it's a bit of a mixed bag. So the services all have efforts going on separately right now to try and single up some of their product lifecycle managements into more, across the board, because it has been county options somewhat in many of the different programs and program offices are out there amongst the community. They're starting to single those up now. I know the Army has a significant effort underway right now as well. And frankly, they're one of our closest partners right now because that gives us a ready test case. I kind of characterize it as we're building the box right now with TDMT, and then we start plugging that box into each one of the services repositories, and then start pulling that information and building that digital data flow. And in I just say the Army's right now is we're piloting with them in a couple of different areas, and those where they're pulling together their repositories into a single thing just makes it easier for us to pull all this together. We kind of look like TDMT is going to be somewhat of a universal translator, though. We're going to look to pull in whatever types, whether it's 3D, PDF, etc. Pull that information in those different formats, and then provide that standardized package as it goes back out to industry each time.
What will you evaluate in the pilot program with the Army to determine this is going the way that we would like it to, or we should go in a different direction?
We have a process in place right now, what we call the 339 process, where it's a DLA form where we go out manually and request an engineering determination on an item. If a vendor comes in and says, hey, I can build this for you, but I need a variation on whatever this thing is, this coding, this tolerance, whatever it is, they'll come in with a request for variation on whatever that is. And then we have to go back out, reach back out to the engineering support activity via 339, all manual process right now, and ask that question. That question may bounce back and forth 2 or 3 times before we finally get to a resolution. And all this time the clock is ticking, and we need to get these parts on the shelf, right? So we're losing time. So one of the biggest things we're going to be looking at is in TDMT, that happens all digitally. And it's much more of a direct link from that contractor's request for variation right back to the engineering support activity. We know where that package is sitting. We know who has that question on their desk. Right now, a lot of that's opaque. Being able to track that data flow, and then really, frankly, just lessen the amount of administrative lead time in processing those questions. In either direction, back and forth. That's really going to be the key measure for us. Anything that helps us reduce that administrative lead time down to the barest minimum possible is something that's going to be beneficial in dollars and time and responsiveness to our warfighters out there.
I read the first phase will connect TDMT with DLA's enterprise business systems. What's the reason that that's where you're starting, and what does that enable you to do, I guess, as a foundational piece to then move to future phases, Ken?
Yeah, so that really is it's a necessary first step for us to build that interface into EBS, because that's where the demand signal comes from us. That's what really drives. We know we have a requirement. We have a purchase request building in the system, and that's that demand signal for us to actually reach out and do some kind of build the technical data package that needs to go out on solicitation. So that initial phase 1 is going to build that interface in, and then that also is what brings in, here's what the characteristic data that comes out of the FLIS, basically the federal catalog, where that comes into, and that's going to be that interface that's important for us to automate the build of that tech data package. That's going to get us a lot of capability right there. That's that internal piece. Then we'll start reaching out and plugging in to get each one of the feeds from each one of the product lifecycle management systems, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a timeline in mind for future phases of this, Ken?
Yeah, we're going to go this initial phase 1 has been very aggressive. In November will be a phase 1 capability. And then we're really looking to have started to plug in our first few systems in over the next year and declare a initial operating capability in end of FY26 coming up next year. So as we field the box and start running it through its paces and its interface with the enterprise business system, then we will go partner by partner, service by service, and then start plugging in to start populating the system with the tech data from each one of the programs.
Is the data flowing in the way that you want it to and need it to the main marker or the only marker that matters, or are there other performance markers that you're going to watch?
Yeah. So much of the challenge we have out there with obsolescence and diminishing manufacturing sources There was a lot of new and requalifications and new qualifications of vendors going on. It's taken a lot of time. The data flows, that's going to be a huge piece. But frankly, timeliness of getting responses back so that we can qualify new sources into the defense industrial base, source approval, for example, and processing those in a much more timely fashion. I was just talking with somebody the other day about our target for new entrants into the defense industrial base, which we're looking at for this coming fiscal year. We're looking at maybe 10%, that's a big swing. But what you can't be is unresponsive to industry when you have new folks that wanted to get into this business, and they don't. This is going to make it easier for them. It's going to make it more responsive for them, and it's going to keep them, I think, as part of the defense industrial base, which will add to our resiliency, which we really need right now. We got a lot of single point failures when it comes into the parts and the supply chain business right now that we're trying to reduce and build that resiliency back in. So I think that's going to be one of the big measures. And I anticipate a lot of feedback, frankly, from industry on this.
What kind of feedback from industry is good feedback, and what kind is not as helpful?
Well, I think for us, industry saying, hey, you're answering my questions in a better way, or you're not. A lot of the PAR requests, post-award requests that we get from industry, I think TDMT is going to automate that flow and make that much easier for them to get a response back and forth. The other piece, I think, it'll make the questions that we do get probably better. It's easier for us to answer, the questions based upon some level of understanding of the business. And this will all put us on somewhat of a level playing field and leverage a single entry point into, the people are going to be able to answer and respond. Right now, it can be hard, I think, for our vendor base to understand how to get to the right person to answer the question they have. But back to the feedback, any feedback we get from them, I think right now we're going to listen to and try and incorporate that while we're still in the building stage of TDMT, and we have the ability to modify it to suit our needs.
Ken, I appreciate you coming on talking about this today, and I look forward to progress reports as you keep moving forward. Thanks for joining me.
We will do that. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time, Francis.
You can read more about TDMT on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. The Army's reviewing results from its annual data summit. The Chief Information Officer of the Army, Leonel Garcia, will tell you about it this Sunday morning on FedGov Today TV. You can watch the debut on ABC7 in Washington and on the FedGov Today YouTube channel at 10:30 Sunday morning. If you miss the debut, you can watch anytime at fedgovtoday.com and on YouTube. A plan to cut bid protests in this year's National Defense Authorization Act might do the exact opposite. The former head of FedSim at GSA, Chris Ham, will tell you why on the next FedGov Today podcast. That's coming next Tuesday, and you can listen to every FedGov Today podcast anytime you want on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on demand at fedgovtoday.com. I'm Francis Rose. Thanks very much for listening.